Go ahead. Is it a what? Mr. Mayo, this is Dawn. Can you hear me? Oh my God. Mr. Mayo, I see that you're connecting to audio. Let me know when you can hear me and talk back. Mr. Mayo, can you hear me? This is Dawn from PIO. Mr. Mayo, can you hear me? It looks like your mic has connected, but it's muted. Naomi, can you unmute Mr. Mayo?
All right.
All right. Can you hear me?
Am I unmuted now?
You are unmuted.
All right. It just came on my screen when you asked me.
Oh,
all right.
Very good.
So I'll sit right here and just wait.
Yes, sir. And we won't mess with your mic, okay?
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for the help, Dawn.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
How's everybody this evening?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
Doing all right.
Can I do a video preview?
Dr. Brown?
Yes.
Hey, it's Dawn from PIO. At 6 o'clock, we will stop screen sharing the slide and then you'll have the floor.
Okay. Can you see video for me?
Not now, I could earlier.
Okay, how did it look?
It looked fine.
Was there enough light or not too much light?
Yeah, it was perfect.
Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. Dr. Brown, you have the floor.
All righty, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Let's call the EMS Oversight Committee meeting to order. I have 6:02. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Hopefully, everybody has a copy of the agenda. So I'll ask for, if anyone has any corrections or suggestions for the minutes, everyone should have received an electronic copy.
Motion to approve.
All right, I think if everybody, if there are no suggestions, we'll just accept them as written. So hearing no suggestions, we'll accept the minutes as written. All right, excellent. Approval of the agenda. Any additions, changes to the agenda?
Dr. Brown,
Yes, sir.
because it's virtual, you all will need to do a roll call.
Not for accepting of the minutes. Roberts doesn't
Okay.
require minutes to be voted on.
No,
They can be accepted by the body.
no, I think you need to do a roll call just to make sure everybody's here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I should
Yes,
do a
yeah,
roll
yeah.
call. Yeah, I see what you're saying. All right. Yeah, thank you. Carla, let's do a roll call to make sure who's there. Thank you, Brian. I got confused what you were asking about.
Sure thing. Charles Mayo,
Here,
Kipling Clemens,
Present.
Joe Morgan,
Present.
Jim MacArthur,
Here.
Roberto Portella,
Present.
Mackenzie Newkirk, Chairman Fitzpatrick,
Here.
Michael Brown,
Here.
John Silvernail, George Bell.
Here.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Brian, for reminding me of that. And again, welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. Now, where we left off was approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right. Who was that?
Mike Fitzpatrick.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Fitzpatrick. Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, second by Dr. Portella. All in favor? Oh, Carla's gonna have to do a roll call for that.
Okay. Charles Mayo,
I agree.
Kipling Clemens,
Agree.
Joe Morgan,
Yes.
Jim MacArthur,
Yes.
Roberto Portella,
Yes.
Mackenzie Newkirk, Chairman Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Michael Brown,
Yes.
John Silvernail, George Bell.
Yes.
So it sounds like it passed. So we'll move on with the agenda as it was sent to you. Carla, did any EMS squad sign up for comments?
No, no, sir.
Okay, all right. And so if I'll remind everybody, if you see what Carla added on the top of our agenda for tonight, the links that you get sent to this meeting are for committee members only. So please don't share that with other people. If other people want to go and watch the live broadcast, then Carla's given you the address, the YouTube address that you can share with folks, okay? So just remind you of that. Those are your personal Zoom links. And then if people put in that they want to make a comment, we'll send them a Zoom link to make comments. Great, thank you. All right, so Happy New Year, everybody. And this is our first meeting of the year. So we'll turn to items of the for a report. And we'll start off with Dr. Portella, our medical director.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm gonna apologize. I'm in a conference in San Diego, so I'm a little, I'm basically out of town. I'm gonna take over the screen if I may. I'm gonna talk a little about cardiac arrest in 2021. I was asked to give this information, and I think it's relevant to always bring it now to the conclusion of our year. I can bring a little more information. I have a few slides, so we're going to try to share, and hopefully everything's going to go well. And hopefully you should be seeing my first slide. Can everybody say yes for me?
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about a little cardiac arrest outcomes. Like I've said in previous years, and some of you have heard me, is I'm extremely proud of the service and the level of service that the system of Pitt County EMS have done over the years. So let's switch to the other slide if I can make this happen. Let's see. So here's the graph over the years, and this is going back to 2012. And you can see how in the blue line, we started with a survival rate of cardiac arrest of 7.9%. And when I say survival rates, let me be specific. We're talking about patients that have out of hospital cardiac arrest that are resuscitated by EMS, arrive to the hospital and get discharged from the hospital. So we're not just talking about people that make it to the hospital. We're actually talking about people that make it out of the hospital. So a lot of things have to go well for that to happen, of course. But you can see back in 2012, our arrest outcomes was 7.9%. Okay, so less than 10% of people that went into cardiac arrest in Pitt County made it out of the hospital. Right? The graph above it, which is the orange line, is bystander CPR, and you can see that graph over years how it changed. We have gotten better at having bystander CPR on scene, especially because our telecommunicators from 911 dispatch center gave instructions to all willing people to give CPR. But since I'm on that topic, I'm going to say we need to do more about that. It is so important to have bystander CPR, especially because the majority of cardiac arrests happen in the home, not in a public setting. So unless there's somebody in the house that knows how to do CPR, it won't be until the telecommunicator tells them how to do CPR that it won't start. So very important for everybody to learn. But going back to outcomes, you can see how the graph has gone. We had a great year, 2015, 2018, where we had 17.9% survival rate. That was incredibly great. You can see in the end numbers how many cardiac arrests we did, non-traumatic cardiac arrests we had in 2016, 17, and up to 2021 there. And we go back to 2021, we had a 12.2% survival rate. Some of you might see that graph and say, oh, what happened? Why did we go down? Well, there's always more to the story. It's not, the numbers are not simple. And I'll go to that a little more. One thing is I can show you how many cardiac arrests we had through every month through the last year. And you can see that big spike on August, huge spike, right? That's a lot of cardiac arrests. Big change, right, from when you see the year. How we ended up that year, like I said, it was 12.2%, coming from a 14.7% in 2020. And you can see what the other thing that they talked about is what it's called the Mustang Criteria, which is people that were witness cardiac arrest with a shockable rhythm, a cardiac rhythm when arrival that you can actually apply an AD and try to reverse it on scene. Those patients usually have a higher chance of survival because they're the perfect candidates. They have a reversible cause immediately. They were witness, so they haven't been down for an unknown period of time. So you can see in 2020 it was 43.5%. Osteen on 2021 was 37.5%. You can see our CPR, bystander CPR went up to 50.3%. We still lag in public AED use. I think having more access to AEDs around the county would be very beneficial. especially people knowing where they are. That's even more important. But I give you this graph because I want to compare this to the national experience, right? Because we can see our numbers went down 2%, right? 2 point something percent, but let's see national now. So in the US, and this is based on the CARES database, the cardiac arrest registry, you can see that the survival rate for nationally went down from 10.3% to 7.5%. So nationally it went down. Austin criteria, you know, the most likely persons to actually survive a cardiac arrest also went down nationally, 32.5% to 23.5%. So why is that? You know, interesting question, right? But we can see that our numbers kind of trail nationally, or it was a mirror of what happened nationally. This also comes from the CARES database, and you can see, and this is not 2021, this is, the blue line is 2019, the red line is 2020. And you can see that as they started from January to March, it started more or less the same. And then it took a dip right around March 2020. Does anybody know why? It was COVID. And you can see that line hasn't never recovered. So that was in 2020. I don't have the data for 2021 specifically to compare that, but you can see how that line dipped during 2020. And we can, you know, why did this happen? What are the reasons? I just lost my, sorry, I lost my slide. My apologies. This comes directly from the CARES database, you know, and when they see that dip, and they say one of the potential factors were fewer arrests occurring in public locations. So if there was nobody around in your house to help you, there was nobody to give you bystander CPR. Maybe decreased presenting chokeable rhythms. That will, you know, lower your chances of surviving a sudden cardiac arrest. Lower rates of bystander CPR defibrillation. People were afraid to interact with people, getting, you know, close to them. Changes in patterns of care or post-resuscitation interventions. I can say that in Pitt County, that did not change. We did not change our approach to cardiac arrest during the pandemic. And the reason we did that is I didn't think there was any evidence to suggest that EMS personnel were at higher risk to contract COVID from cardiac arrest patients than from regular patients. So there was no need, scientifically based, to change our management of cardiac arrest patients. So we did not do that. Some places did. And there might have been delay in time-sensitive interventions by bystanders, 911, something that is not mentioned there. There's people delaying care, not going to the doctor, or not being able to go to the doctor. So all those things influence, and we can go into the economics of it, you know, losing their job, not even being able to pay for the medication. So if you can't take your medications, you can't take care of yourself. So there are multiple variables. And the obvious one is direct effect of COVID in mortality of patients, right? Being the primary cause of the cardiac arrest. So even though, like I said, we dipped a little, we didn't dip as much as nationally. So I'm still very proud of our numbers. I think we're still doing a very good job in cardiac arrest management. I think we can do better, and I always strive to do better. So we will continue working with the system to improve our care. And the big one for this year is trying to improve our STEMI care, the care of what they call ST elevation, myocardial infarctions, or heart attacks. You know, so and that we're having a couple of projects involved in that and trying to make that even better. Okay. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm open for any questions.
All right. Are there any questions for Dr. Portilla? All right, hearing none. I want to say thank you, Dr. Portilla, for giving this report, particularly given that you're out of town, and we really do appreciate that. And again, I just want to echo what Dr. Portilla said, that the EMS system here is doing a fine job working with cardiac arrests, including fire departments that are dispatched, including our EMS providers. And even if folks who are bystanders, if they're using pulse point even, are able to respond more quickly. So
That's a great
Thanks,
plug. We should talk about that. Everybody should download PulsePoint. Encourage your family members, friends, loved ones to download PulsePoint. It will tell you when there's a nearby cardiac arrest in a public place, and you can choose to help. If not, it will tell you where stuff is happening in EMS. It's also a good tool just to know what you're doing. And to echo what Dr. Brown said, I should have said that from the beginning. We have to give a big shout out and thanks to our partners, volunteer fire departments, Pitt County Sheriff. All these people go to our cardiac arrest, helps us manage this patient. So without them, EMS couldn't do their job. So shout out to them. Thank you very much, because our triumph in this is their triumph.
all right, any other questions for Dr. Portella? All right, thank you, Dr. Portella. Is Brock Davenport or someone from GFR here for a report?
Hey, Jesse Harris, Greenville Fire Rescue.
Oh, Jesse. Hi, Jesse.
Hey. How y'all doing tonight? Hey, so the only thing we
How are
really
you?
get to pass, we're doing well. The only thing we really got to pass on is for those that hadn't seen, we got a new chief that was selected, Chief Carson Sanders, coming from Sarasota, Florida. He'll be starting the 1st of February. So some of y'all will probably be talking with him as he gets situated, but that's really the only thing we got to report is him coming on board.
And he's an EMS guy, as I noticed from the press release.
He is. He's had a lot of good successes down there. So I look forward to what he's going to bring to Greenville as well as the system. So he's had some good services down there. So looking forward to it.
All right, great. Any questions for Jesse? All right, thank you, Jesse, for being here, and thanks to all you guys in GFR as well.
Thank you.
All right, next on the list, actually, I think I skipped over, is the EMS Rescue Association report. George Bell.
Nothing to report.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for George? All right, hearing none. I don't think Jeff White is here. Is Jeff White on the call? So we'll have no report from the non-emergency transports. So I'll call on Mackenzie Newkirk, who's from PCC and the EMS and fire training. Mackenzie? Mackenzie here? I thought I heard her say here for roll call. No? All right. All right, Dr. Silvernail, Public Health Director. Is he on the line?
No, sir, Dr. Silvernail is not online either.
Okay, thank you. Took me a minute to switch to the gallery view, so I apologize for that. All right, next up then is our Emergency Management Director, Randy Gentry. Randy?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for participating and being a part of our oversight committee. The only thing I want to mention is here we're in the winter and be winter weather aware. We have some weather coming in this weekend. I'll have a plan for what you might do because of the impending weather. And Dr. Brown, that's all I've got this evening.
All righty. Are there any questions for Randy? All right, hearing none, I'll move to the EMS Coordinator Report. Jim MacArthur.
Hey, Doc, since You wanted me to give a short presentation. Do you want to give the Brian or others a chance to go ahead, since that's probably going to take about 15 minutes or so?
I can do that. Do you want to go? Would you like to go next, Brian? And we'll do Jim last for reports.
Yeah, I'll go next. No problem.
Okay, thank you. So for financial report, Brian Barnett. Jim may have mentioned this because I inadvertently left Brian off the last meeting, and I apologize for that, Brian. It won't happen again if it'll start by your name this time.
It's all good. So I just wanted to let everybody know that at the 6-month point, we're about 450,000 in revenue higher than we were last year. So that's a good thing. Switching to the new EMS system has really helped. The EMS billing system has really helped to collect those bills, and with our property tax values being what they are, we're pulling in pretty good money. The one thing I did want to throw out to the group, I did get a request from Winterville to tap into the contingency funding. In my opinion, because of how well the revenues are doing this year, I wanted to see, and this may need a motion at some point, but I wanted to just see if we could just go ahead and move forward with all the contingency money. I think with the increased cost right now due to the pandemic, I think it's probably prudent to go ahead and just award that money out, and financially we're at a good place. So I think, I'm comfortable moving forward with that as and it'll skip a couple steps in a couple of our meetings if we just go ahead and do it. The only thing I'll have to do is I have to go to the Board of County Commissioners because it is a contingency line item, and they'll have to approve it, but I don't foresee that being an issue. And that's really all the report I have, unless there's any questions.
All right, well, I'm going to ask you then to make that motion. If you're suggesting that this committee approve giving everybody their contingency fund money now, is that what you're suggesting?
That's correct.
Okay, why don't you make that motion and then we'll have a discussion and vote on it.
Sure. I motion that the contingency money that was set up in this year's budget be taken to the Board of County Commissioners for approval, and then submitted back out to the respective squads.
Just a point, this is Jordan Smith, County Attorney. I think Brian serves this board as a liaison capacity, and I think it'd probably be best to have a voting member make any motions.
Hey, Brian, so moved. This is Jim.
Second, this is Charles.
All right, so Jim made the motion. Charles, did you second that?
I seconded it.
Okay, super. So we have a motion on the floor to refresh everybody's memory. Last year, we created a tiered plan for squads to ask for additional money during a budget year if they had additional needs. And what this motion is suggesting is, instead of asking squads this year to give us individual requests, that this committee recommend to the Board of County Commissioners that we fund all of the squads their tiered allotment. And Brian, I don't know if you want to say any more about your rationale for that. I think what I heard you say was that with pandemic expenses that you thought squads were in a position to use the additional money. Were there other rationales that you want?
That pretty much sums it up. I'm sure that the request I got kind of spelled that out, so I'm sure that's being felt across the county, and we're also seeing that in county departments. So I don't think anybody's immune from the pandemic.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Just wanted to point out, and George is on the call, but that was expressed on the EMS Oversight, EMS Association on Tuesday night from the president, that probably the entire contracted community is probably in the same situation.
Okay, great.
This is Joe. I guess I don't have a problem with it, except I do think that there needs to be, just for continuity in future years, there does need to be requests made. I don't know, we can say that it's fine for the EMS group to approve those, but I'm trying to think out in the future, because I don't know how to say it, but Winterville's already done it. And I just think the other ones, if they have requests, and I don't mean make it difficult, extensive, but some documentation. Unless we're saying that, are we going to be able to give them what they asked for initially in the budget, Brian?
I don't make budget promises before we get into it.
No. Last year's, but we cut, right? They made a request, county commissioners, we had a recommendation, right?
Correct.
So, and this money nowhere near comes near what the cuts were from their request, right?
Not necessarily. Because each squad requested different amounts. So it's a partially, you're correct. And maybe in some cases it's not as bad, but no, I fully anticipate the request this year when we get into March will be higher than what we're going to do here in the contingency. But I feel like you have a very valid point, but I also feel like this year, based on everything, I'm comfortable moving ahead with that, and I know they can use it. So,
and I am too. I guess I want a little bit of a paper trail, because what happens 2 years from now, we do really well, but there's a truck somebody needs to buy that we're using those assets for. How do we I just feel like we just need a little paper trail from each squad that needs more. Just for future references, and to keep with our procedure of how we were going to do this, because otherwise I'm afraid it's going to look like, well, we did it this year and then next year we're going to make them jump through a hoop. And again, I'm not trying to make a difficult hoop. I'm just trying to be consistent from year to year. But I guess we could agree that we would approve those. Or we would give, I don't know, as an advisory board, can we give Randy's department the authority to say these are okay, and they can come back to us if it's something crazy for them?
I would answer that as even with this request that I did receive, I did talk to Randy and Jim about it before coming to the meeting tonight. So I think that's pretty much already built in to the procedure, because I wouldn't feel comfortable if they told me they didn't.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way. That sounds good.
I have a question.
Okay, Charles.
All right. My question would be, doesn't Brian's, I would think his data and our own county data on surely the cost of parts and the upkeep for vehicles would be tires, anything, rubber products, fuel products, and that is bound to be higher than what they were considering a year ago. Do we have any data?
I haven't looked at the individual line items to that extent, but I can't imagine that it's cheaper today than it was in January of 2021.
Charles, we do have records, but I don't have the data compiled at this moment to give that out. But yes, as we approve invoices for repair and different things to run the system, there is a noticeable uptick in all those costs.
I would think that and supplies would probably take care of what we're able to award them on the tiered system.
So, yeah, there's been much discussion.
Just fuel alone has been a moving target.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Brown, you hear me?
No, go ahead, Jim.
So there's been much discussion about the criteria for this tiered money that the previous manager allocated. And as we've discussed, what that criteria would look like, due to the, I guess, the amount available here, it's not a substantial percentage of what the annual budgets of the EMS squads are. We've discussed everything from having the squads to present all of their account balances, balance sheets, to prove or demonstrate that they are in dire straits for additional money. But that seems a little excessive considering the amount of money that we're talking about. And so then what we've come back to is we don't have a clear criteria because the financial situation of each squad seems to be relatively different, and how they're managed is different across the 8 nonprofits. And so their situations are different. We do recognize that costs have gone up substantially. So, this is an amount of money that does help. Since it's based upon call volume specifically, I almost look at it as a stopgap to help with fuel and maintenance almost exclusively, just because it's based on call volume. The cost of staffing continues to be the same, more or less across the system. EMTs and paramedics cost what they cost, and hourly rates are they're not fixed, but they're more or less the same station to station. Winterville does have 2 full-time employees that they pay. They're the only squad that does that specifically, and so they have to allocate benefits in similar fashion to what Pitt County government does for our employees. And so, Joe, I think we do recognize, and Dr. Brown, that there needs to be some criteria, but as Brian mentioned and Randy and I have discussed, that this amount of money makes it difficult to make the squads come and give a prolonged explanation of why they need. We recognize that they need some additional funding. So we'll see how it goes, and I think the budget requests will be what they are. And Brian and his staff and all of us at the county will do our best to make it happen for everybody.
I do think, to Joe's point, I think what Jim said, I totally agree with. To Joe's point, we said that we would come up with some criteria and guidelines. So I think we still need to do that for the future, so we have some sense and have some structure for folks in the future as well.
And I'm just suggesting that I have no problem. I understand everything everybody's saying. I'm just asking pen to paper for reference when we're asked, you got a year from now, well, why did you do that then and you can't do it now? So I'm just saying, if the squads would just, I'm not talking anything dramatic, but just rather than us handing them the money, just again, following our procedure of them requesting for that. Again, it doesn't have to be lengthy, and it can say exactly what you all have said right here. But I think we need to understand, we just don't send it to them unless we're just going to put it in their budget, and which is the purpose. Then I would say, why do we even have a contingency if we're just going to dole it back out, go and give it to them anyway? But that's just my
message received.
All right, thank you. All right, any other discussion? Sensing that you're ready to vote. Carla, will you do a roll call for votes, please? We're on the, everybody understand the motion? All right. Carla?
All right. Charles Mayo,
Yes.
Kipling Clemens,
Yes.
Joe Morgan,
yes.
Jim MacArthur,
Yes.
Roberto Portella,
Yes.
Mackenzie Newkirk, Chairman Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
Michael Brown,
Yes.
John Silvernail, George Bell.
Yes.
All righty. So the motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Brian, thank you for the suggestion. Brian, do you have anything else to report?
No, that's it. Other than next month, we'll be back with the budget. March is usually our budget presentation meeting.
All right, great. So everybody be prepared for that.
And then he can tell us what he's cooking later too. He can send that to us.
All right. Okay, so we then come back around to Jim for the EMS Coordinators Report. Jim McCarthy.
All right, so I don't have anything to report significantly other than what's been shared. I guess we do have 4 ambulances that are in production, and as Randy has mentioned previously, the allocation of those will be determined a little bit closer to their arrival, but we're looking at probably end of April or May for those, so they should be here soon. We did just receive a new Tahoe for our supervisors. Their other vehicle is only 2 years old, but it had about 80,000 miles on it. I ordered that one 14 months ago, and it just showed up last month. So as our EM staff and county staff start to look at budget specifically and vehicles and capital purchasing, we have to take into account that we're well over a year out on our vehicle purchases, just so you probably see that again. So I do have a short educational session. I want to talk with you, community paramedicine update. There's some members on here, I think, that aren't very familiar with community paramedicine. It's a huge passion of mine. The county has won multiple awards with our program, and we do an incredible job with Michelle Etheridge as our community paramedic. And so I'm going to give you a little background and an update at the request of Dr. Brown, and I'm going to see if I can share my screen. Does everyone see that?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
All right. So the common theme for community paramedicine, I think in Pitt County and many others, is the collaborative word. Collaboration is what makes this thing go. We worked on our community paramedic program for about 5 years prior to any implementation or funding that was acquired. Vidant Health, Vidant Foundation, Vidant Medical Center, our county commissioners, and others have been huge supporters. So thank you all for that. So what is community paramedicine? It's a relatively young and new delivery model that increases access to service for folks that traditionally don't have it. We use paramedics in the field to manage chronic diseases, high risk folks and people that have access to care problems. Paramedics are suited for this because they're familiar with the community, they're out in the field, and they have training in several different areas. And so then we're able to be community care coordinators to match everything to get people what they need. This is a slide. This is an old slide. So for those who've seen this before, I'll be quick with this. But basically, how do you implement this? Well, you start with several collaborative meetings, figure out what you're trying to do. Then we had to acquire the funding. Money drives everything. There are no volunteers anymore. Anybody who says that there are volunteers in EMS is not looking at it very closely. But community paramedicine is extremely specialized, and so we get there. You have to recognize what's available, who the target population will be, and then how to do this. Right? It's not novel. It's not new, but we've never done it in our community. So then you have to figure out how to make it happen. Everything has to be measurable to demonstrate sustainability and success, right? So several different ways that we measure sustainability and success with this program. If you notice on the right there, the community paramedic program for Pitt County was submitted as one of the 3 projects for our All-America County Award. Huge achievement. We're extremely proud of that. the Oversight Committee was a big supporter of this program. And so you should pat yourselves on the back for supporting our program. So as a result of that, the budget last year included our full-time community paramedic, Michelle Etheridge. We memorialized that position through her success. We were able to demonstrate that this is something that the county has to take ownership in, and they did that. And so we're extremely proud of that. So she doesn't have to worry about having a job year to year based on grant funding. She continues to do an incredible job, and she's overwhelmed. We have still managed to apply for and receive the Violent Foundation grants. Currently, that funds one part-time paramedic, and the medical software that Michelle uses to chart for patients is substantially different than our regular software. So they actually helped us fund the startup of that. And that's in the current year. We did take a large cut from last year in the grant funding because of COVID. They asked us to take a voluntary funding cut. So that's why it did not include a second position that we had asked for. So why is it important, right? So the healthcare system, as you hear every day, that's all the news talks about. The healthcare system is overwhelmed because of COVID, but the reality is that it was fairly overwhelmed before. Our emergency rooms and ambulance units continue to receive calls that are, as we use the air quotes, not necessary for 911 emergencies. But we have to respond to those, and we do offer transportation to the hospital kind of regardless of what the complaint is. That 60% number that you see of people that may or may not require emergency care, it actually may be a little bit higher. It could be upwards of 70 or 75%, depending on what the complaints are. But it is a substantial number of people that seek treatment in the emergency department that don't necessarily need that. Community paramedicine also meets the access to care, transportation, and other sort of that unmet needs area that is so important as we talk about medicine and where we spend public health dollars and other public monies. County government is responsible for the social services and public health arenas. Community paramedicine is an extension of EMS, but it also falls squarely into the public health realm and DSS daily. High poverty, adequate housing, all of those things are things that the community paramedic deals with. We actually align several of our program areas with the community health needs assessment that public health does. Access to care, again, transportation. Those are things that we know we have to hit hard. So our current program, right now, Michelle has 8 patients that are enrolled and actively seeking care. I think 4 of these are congestive heart failure patients, and 4 are familiar faces to the ER. Familiar faces to the ED are triggered both through EMS and the hospital itself recognizes people who show up excessively. Generally, that's considered, I think, 5 or 6 trips or more inside of a 90-day window. And once that's triggered, those folks make referral to Michelle in our program for follow-up. And just for reference, she's received 11 new referrals outside of those 8 since January 1 of this year. So that, in talking with her, that's about average for her. About 10, 4 to 5 a week is kind of where we are on that. We're not able to track certain referrals, such as some of the things that really don't take a lot of time, supply needs, Medicaid resource referrals, just because we don't have, she doesn't enroll those people into the program. So when they're not enrolled currently, those are just, we try to help them and then move on. And those may be durable medical equipment or supplies, things like that. So for the folks that are enrolled, for ED familiar faces, we're talking about 1 to 2 visits per week that are several hours in nature. They may be 1 to 3 hours per person per visit. depending on what they need. And then those take folks generally average about 2 to 3 weeks in program actively, and then she will graduate them and move on to other folks. If they need continued follow-up, she'll keep them in there. The others here at the bottom of the screen, those are CHF, COPD patients, or whatever they may be, home safety assessments, smoke alarms, fall referrals, other things that really their needs vary. And so she can adjust her time as needed to meet the needs of those folks. Yeah, I know everybody's surprised to see that COVID has sort of changed the game for us, has caused us to change how we look at community paramedicine. It's substantially increased the referrals for several reasons. I think primarily would be because Vidant and other home care facilities, especially at the start of COVID, really changed how they allowed providers to go into the homes to do clinical care. So home care nursing, nursing assistants, all of those things really changed. And I think they're getting more back to normal. But what we found is staffing has really caused issues, because just like with staffing of our favorite restaurants, medical staffing is really hard to get. And so those programs are not all seeing things. Well, EMS, we did not change practice fundamentally because of COVID. We've continued to do what we do in the same fashion. The biggest addition during COVID has been home vaccinations. The community paramedics have been leveraged over the long term here, especially in the last 3 or 4 months, to get people who are unable to leave the home, shut-ins or other high-risk folks, and go to their home and do the COVID vaccinations at home. We had that new part-time employee that I referenced in the grant funding. He came on board with us in October, and that's almost been his exclusive job since he got on the road, just because it hasn't required a lot of training and education. So we've been able to free up Michelle a little bit for some additional work. We do home vaccinations just for reference. We get those requests for home vaccines from Vidant and our public health department. We've done 109 first and second doses since September, 78 boosters done. Those have been mostly in the last 4 to 5 weeks, and then 6 flu vaccines administered as well. During COVID, if you may recall, the social services and government released or reduced the requirements for food stamps and food assistance and Medicaid access. And so all of our community paramedic enrollees that struggled with access to care and food security problems were enrolled. There was no waiting period. That has since reverted back to, I guess, our normal way of doing business. And so several of the folks enrolled in the program they don't qualify for one reason or another. They're either not old enough, not young enough, whatever it is. And so there are some wait times. What we found is that, and Joe and anybody that's a public health person in here, all of these social determinants that we address, the more things that we can check off as boxes and secure food security, adequate housing, access to medical care and pharmaceutical needs, those are all things that keep people out of the hospital and keep them fairly healthy. These traditionally unhealthy folks are surprisingly accountable for themselves once you help them solve some of these issues. So it'll be interesting to see as we go back to a more normal way of operating, how those folks do and if they are able to stay out of the hospital. I like pictures. It's easy to show you. This is the one side of our brochure. We hand out to all of our patients and many community partners. Everybody likes pictures. It's got all the contact information for Michelle. The back side of this, fun fact for those that are looking at the map on the left side, that we tried to start this out as a pilot project. That's why we have one paramedic. But what we found is that we could not exclude any part of our county. So Michelle has active patients all over the county, including the city of Greenville, wildly successful. All of our EMS agencies have embraced the community paramedic, make referrals to it, including Greenville Fire and others. And we do our best to meet everybody's needs. But this is a big county, and one person it's a little overwhelming, and it looks hard because it is hard. One of the exciting things to me about this is Vidant Medical Center is a premier healthcare organization. And as we were doing discharge planning, everybody that's discharged from Vidant gets some type of follow-up. And I think several of you have seen this before, but Vidant was happy enough with our program that they memorialized the community paramedic as an option for patients that really don't meet other criteria in the discharge program. And so what we found is that anybody who doesn't fit in one of the boxes gets referred to us. And it's a sort of a pride thing because those seem to be the most difficult of the difficult. And so Michelle and our program, they get the opportunity to try to figure out how to manage these patients. Main challenges that we face day to day: transportation for folks. If you can get them to their medical appointments, they stay out of the hospital. They don't use ambulances. Folks that have neighbors, friends in their own cars, they are generally pretty accountable for themselves. Adequate housing is a thing. Obviously, these extreme temperatures, both hot and cold, make it difficult to manage people. And Michelle pointed out to me today that Meals on Wheels, several of our referrals into Meals on Wheels, which is a yeoman's group that, if you know anybody looking for volunteer time that has adequate transportation, please help them to transport meals to folks, because they have almost a 2-year waiting list, depending on who you are, for Meals on Wheels, which is an incredibly long time to try to get some food security. Things we know we can do better. Talked with Michelle some here recently. We can always improve, right? So post-referral contact time is one of her goals to do a better job on. So because of her being a one-person operation and the number of referrals coming in, it's taken her approximately 1 to 2 weeks to follow up all of that wait list of referrals and find out everybody's need. The goal is 24 to 48 hours from referral to first contact for the program. And with the addition of Danilo as a part-timer, once he gets his feet under him and finishes up some of these COVID vaccine appointments, we hope that he will be able to help lessen that load a little bit. We did have a 100% compliance for discharge rate, meaning that all of the enrollees from last year, everybody that's been enrolled in the program, complied with their goals that were set at enrollment and was discharged from the program. People that are still in it that may have been held, they continue to be compliant. One of the things that Michelle lays out when she meets with new patients is that there's a fairly stringent requests that need to be met, and as long as people are compliant and cooperative, she will keep them in the program, and they experience great success while they're in it. One of the successes here that was demonstrated to me, our most familiar face to Vidant facility, Pitt County resident that was seeing both Vidant Beaufort and Vidant Medical Center in Greenville, 164 visits over the last 6 months. This was early 2021. Several folks noticed this individual, and Michelle worked fairly hard to get them enrolled into the program. And once they became contacted and enrolled into the program, that number actually decreased to 6 total emergency department visits over the next 90 days from contact to the 3-month period, which is a 96% decrease in usage of the ER. And as best we can tell, the 6 visits that this person did take to the hospital were mostly necessary. They they have some significant respiratory issues. But that 164 number is not normal for anybody, but there's a surprising number of people that use the hospital in that manner, and the ED has to deal with that. So outcomes of the program, the setup of the health cost software is ongoing. Data entry takes the longest, and so Michelle's working on that. It's simply a matter of converting data from the Word and Excel documents into the program. Average is about a 50% decrease in hospital and EMS usage after they're contacted in the program. Some folks a little more, some a little less. And then we do connect folks 100% of the time for outside services, whether it's Medicaid and other community resources. Again, social determinant of health or everything, extremely important. Things that I continue to wear Randy and Dr. Portella and others out about, and those of you that have heard me discuss this, we need several of these positions due to the size of our county and the caseload that they take on. So that's something that will be needing to be considered in the future, some additional full-time positions, constantly increasing the number of people that require this service. And as our ambulances get busier, these services are also just as important, because this helps to take some of the load off of the existing ambulances. So you wind up almost can trade off. You don't need to add more ambulances necessarily if you can decrease some of the unnecessary volume that they're transporting, try to keep those units available for more real emergencies. But, fleet management, Mr. Charles mentioned vehicles, fuel and tires and maintenance as she's covering the whole county and things, incorporating this into our regular fleet rotation, and then other specialized equipment. Community paramedic uses lab equipment and some other things that maybe our regular ambulances don't utilize. So in summary, I hope I didn't go too fast and you get a little out of it. Zoom is really hard to understand how everybody's looking at this, but collaboration and partnership among all the stakeholders is extremely important. That's something that I will speak to till I'm blue in the face. We can't have enough of it. If everybody's at the table and we know what they're doing, it works. Collaboration is putting all our stuff on the table and taking our hands off the table, not worrying about who gets the credit. Because if we do it right, we'll all get the credit. You should be proud as county residents and as county government and things, because we do have award-winning personnel operating an award-winning program. It's a very strong, well-renowned program, and we have not turned away anybody from seeking our services at this point. I'd like to take questions if you have any. Probably don't have any, but this was some photos. We went to Wilmington with our commissioners for, I think, the North Carolina Association of Commissioners last year to receive an Excellence in Innovation Award. We're pretty excited about that because it's not everybody gets one. It was something that's relatively exclusive, and so we were extremely excited about that. Dr. Brown, that's all I have there, and if anybody has any comments or concerns or questions.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Oh, let me stop.
Are there any questions for Jim about his report or comments?
I just want to congratulate the team for the work that they're doing. It's becoming more and more popular. You're hearing about it around the country more and more. So it's really cool that you guys are ahead of that curve.
All right. Yep. I will second that, Jim. Thanks to you and the group for having the vision to do this and putting in the hard work to get it going.
Well, we appreciate it. It's, we thank a lot of folks every day. I'm thankful for just being here, but Chairman Fitzpatrick is in the role now, but our commissioners have been really supportive, and the previous leadership and management at the county, and Randy has had no choice but to embrace it, and it's been good, but it is yeoman's work, and it's a lot harder than just picking folks up on a 911 call, taking them to the hospital. Home care is very difficult, and so Michelle does an incredible job, and as long as us as a committee and the system, as long as we can do our best to support that mission, will be good in the long run.
If I may add something. This type of programs show what EMS can do, right? So the reason for EMS is to provide care. We all think about the accident, and they take the people from the accident to the hospital, all that, but this is what EMS is, and that's why we say EMS is kind of intersects public health, the hospital, first responder, and like I saw today in a presentation, emergency management. We're kind of intersection of all those things, and this type of programs show what EMS can do. And basically what we do is help people. And there's no better example than what he just said. And yes, we're reducing costs to the system. Yes, we're reducing costs to the healthcare system as a whole, not just EMS. But we are helping people, not just medically, but physically, emotionally. So this is, I can't say enough good things about the program, Jim, Michelle, Danilo. And of course, thanks to the county commissioners and this board and this committee for supporting this.
All righty. Any other questions or comments for Jim? All right, hearing none. Are there any questions or comments from any of the Oversight Committee members before we adjourn?
Dawn was a great help to me in being able to get the volume. So thanks to Dawn for great work for that.
All right, thank you, Don. Yes, thank you for doing all this to make our Zoom meeting go well.
You're welcome.
All right, hearing no other comments, I'll make a comment tonight. I just want to remind everybody, what did we hear tonight? That our billing revenue is up, that did better than the national average in cardiac arrest survival rates, that we have an innovative and collaborative community paramedicine program, and that we as the committee recognize some of the financial burdens that squads are experiencing this year. So lots of good stuff going on in Pitt County, Greenville for EMS. That said, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Dr. Pritella? Mr. Charles, did you second that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, we can take a voice vote on this. We don't have to do roll call. Let me remind you that our next regular meeting is March 10th at 6 p.m. And we'll wait till we're closer to figure out whether that'll be an in-person meeting or another Zoom meeting, okay? So all in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everybody. It's good to see everyone. I hope everybody had a great holiday and Happy New Year, everyone.